Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am pleased to announce that Ukupalooza is now in the books. Final details are coming. Stay tuned. So, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Ukapalooza, or Ukapalooza, however you want to pronounce it, is officially a wrap. Um, so let's talk a few points about these ukuleles is the way it's supposed to be pronounced. However, most of us I think pronounce it ukulele. So let's talk about final numbers, right? So in terms of how much time do I have invested in the project? Well, required steps, I have a total of 395 minutes, which comes out to 6 hours and 35 minutes. And then non required steps has a total of 1,074 minutes for 17 hours and 54 minutes. That totals out to 1,469 minutes or 24 hours and 29 minutes. So just under 24 and a half hours. Now, let's uh let's look at expenses here, right? So for for all the parts, so I'm talking about the kits themselves, which the kit itself has the neck, it has the strings, it has the tuners, and it has the bridge and saddle and bone nut with it, right? Um, so all of that, um, and then you have the additional items. So, one additional item that I purchased with each kit was a bridge placement template. Now, that's a one time expense that you would buy for these kits, right? And those are $7.50 a piece. And then for each kit, I also bought an MGB unfinished easy box, which is 1950. I bought sound hole covers, which are $4. I bought corner pieces, which are $6, and I bought strap buttons, which are 250 a piece, right? So all of those parts came out to $387.50 that I've spent. Then you figure I'm using some wood glue, I'm using some polycrylic and some stain. I'm going through some sandpaper. There's some shop rags that I'm using, some jute twine, and some other, odds and ends stuff. I figure that probably broke down to around $2.50 per instrument, right? So now, I mean, that's obviously a ballpark, right? I buy an 8-ounce bottle of stain. How much of that stain am I going to use on each one of those instruments? I don't know. I suppose I could have poured it in a measuring cup and measured, but I'm not going to get that detailed with it, right? Um, so, like I said, I just kind of ballpark that. Now, I started out to prove two things. One, that you can build a ukulele for less than $85. And two, you can have a lot of fun doing it. Now, the first point, that's obviously objective, right? I can add up the cost of the parts and materials, right? And so, for instance, the most expensive kit that I built, which was the baritone ukulele, came out to $82 even in parts. You figure, like I said, 250 for the shop materials, the glue and stain and finish and so forth, right? So that brings me to $84.50, right? Then followed next by the uh, the tenor ukulele, which came out to 79.50 in parts. Add on another $2.50, and now we're at 79.50. So 80.50, 81.50, um, $82 on the nose there, right? And then you got the concert kit, which is $77 in parts. Add on another 250. Now we're at 79.50, right? And then both the soprano and the sopranissimo kits, $74.50 each in parts. Add another 250, and now we are at $77, right? So altogether, like I said, for parts and material, yeah, for parts, 387.50. Um, tack on 250 per instrument, that comes out to another 12.50, and we're sitting at $399 total investment in the project. Um, so, like I said, though, that's all pretty objective, right? Like I said, with that baritone, which was the most expensive, and it came out to 84.50. So less than $85, I built this nice little homemade instrument, right? So let's talk about the second part. I said you can have a lot of fun doing it. Now that, my friends, is clearly subjective, right? Your definition of fun and my definition of fun might be different things. But what I'll tell you is that in doing these things, I found it very therapeutic, very relaxing to go through these steps, especially when I got to the sanding and staining and stuff like that. I really just kind of enjoy doing that. I did find some parts of it tedious. I'm not a huge fan of putting the corner pieces on just because each box has 8 corner pieces. Each of those pieces has 2 holes you got to drill, and then you're dealing with little small screws, right, that you got to pop in there. So at 16 screws that I've got to put per box, yeah, okay, yeah, that can be somewhat annoying, but or then installing the tuners into the headstocks, right? You got these little bitty teeny weeny screws that you got to put in there, and those can sometimes get annoying. But overall, though, like I said, just going through it, right? And so The steps here, I mean, they're real simple, right? First of all, you're gonna get your kit, and you really want to take some time and really, you just need a minute or two just to inventory, make sure that everything's there. Um, Heard a story once of one of the big box hardware stores. They practice something called good faith receiving, right? And that's where the store places the order with their suppliers, and suppliers send the truck with the goods, right? And the receiving clerks at the store, instead of actually going line by line on the invoice and making sure that everything that was supposed to be on that truck did in fact come, they just, okay, truck showed up, cool, here's the stuff, and then they just put it in the system that they got everything, right? And they may not have received everything. Well, then that causes a problem for you or I as customers, right? Because um now I get on that store's website and I want to order some tool or some, whatever. Computer says it's there. The inventory is there, right? So cool. Now I'm going to, I don't know, maybe do a pickup order, right? So I go ahead and, add the cart, go check out. I'm expecting that email here in a little bit saying that my order is ready for pickup, but in a little bit I get a phone call from the store. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Spurlock. It turns out we don't have this, um, this can of polycrylic, right? Or whatever it is that I wanted to order. Okay, minor inconvenience there. I've still not left the house, but maybe I see, on the store's website that, they have it in stock. Now I leave my house and I go over to the store and, you know, lo and behold, they don't have it. Now I've just wasted a trip and burned gas, right? So if it's bad when a store practices good faith receiving, it's probably not a good idea for you or me to practice good faith receiving either. Now, when it comes to MGB, I absolutely like one of the best businesses I've ever worked with in my 43 years on this planet, right? So, so I absolutely, I'm confident when I get on MGB's website and I place an order, I am just dead confident that they are going to put everything in that order that I'm paying for. I mean, but they're humans, right? And it's entirely possible, likely, not really, but still, possible that they could forget to put something in the box, right? Or accidentally send the wrong thing. But I tell you, I'm not even so much worried about that because when MGB packs out order, right? And I've seen on the invoices where they go through and they check off and make sure that they've put everything into the package, right? But it leaves their warehouse and leaves Tampa, Florida. Between Tampa, Florida, between Tampa, Florida and Colorado Springs, Colorado, there's a lot of hands going to touch that package, right? And honestly, it's those hands I don't trust for one reason or another. I've been burned in the past. Um, so so that's the thing, right? So you want to take time, you want to order, or you want to inventory your order. Make sure you got everything you want or you ordered, because the last thing you need is you get into this thing and you get to a critical step and oh, the bridge wasn't there. Kind of need the bridge to build the instrument. So the first thing you do is you're going to inventory, right? Then once you inventory everything, Obviously, make sure you've got all your tools and materials laid out where you can get to it. But then I will go ahead and I'll take some masking tape and I'll tape off the box, right? Um, and that'll kind of protect the box a little bit. And then I'll take my center finder ruler, like this, and go ahead and get my measurements. Find the center line on that box, find it both on the head and tail of the box. And then from there, I will take the neck and I'll make sure that I get it placed on that center line, line the bolt up right, get the fretboard down where I need it, and go ahead and I'll take like a little awl or a little punch, and I'll just kind of mark where that bolt is, and then I'll drill out for that neck, right? Drill that hole. So from there, then I can test fit the neck, right? Um, once I'm comfortable that the neck is going to fit, or at least it's pretty close, and it's centered up and everything. So then from there, I'll go ahead and I'll take that bridge placement template, and I will identify where the bridge is going to go, and go ahead and drill pilot holes for that. While I'm at it, I'll go ahead and drill a pilot hole for the strap button. But I'll make sure that my bridge is going to go where it needs to go. From there, go ahead and remove the tape from the box. And this is all critical, right? The strap buttonhole is optional, but go ahead and remove the tape from the box, and then I will. This part is optional. I'll go ahead and I'll sand that box down. I'll take the sandpaper, starting with 80 grit, and going to 120, 220, and 320. Make sure that box is nice and smooth, right? And it's prepped to receive a stain. Um, then we will move into, I'll also do that with the sound hole cover. Now, those sound hole covers from MGB, a little note about them, right? So they come with a finish already on them. So if you want to put a different stain or a different finish on it, you're going to have to get aggressive with some rough grit sandpaper. Um, I did not get aggressive enough, so I didn't get all that finish off when I sanded those down. And you'll see that when I do my next video showing the different ukuleles. Um, if you don't get aggressive enough and get those things sanded smooth enough, you won't get that finish on there even, and it'll throw throw it off. Right now, I kind of like the way it turned out because it kind of made them all look a little bit relicked, which I don't necessarily do relicking, but I'm kind of digging this. Um, but once you get everything sanded down, then I like to go ahead and install the bridge at this point, before I put any kind of stain or anything like that on there. Just because with the bridge, it's intended to be held in place by two really tiny screws, but I don't trust those two screws. So I always like to put a little wood glue on the back of the bridge and secure it that way. It just helps give it a little bit more anchoring, especially once you get those strings on there and start getting some tension. But but then once the bridge is installed, now you're going to, and and installing the bridge, that's a required piece, right? You're going to have to do that at some point, and this is a good place in the process to do it. Then moving into another optional piece, I go ahead and put a stain on it. Um, so what I do is I stain the top and I stain the sound hole cover, and then I'll go ahead and stain the head, the tail, and then the right and left sides of the box, leaving just the back of the box or bottom, um, leaving it just bare wood for the moment until until the stain that's on there gets dry. All right. So now while that stain is drying, then I'll go ahead and I'll move to another optional piece. I wood burn my logo and my build number into the headstock. Again, you can leave that part out. But then the next mandatory piece, you're going to have to install the tuners into the headstock, right? Um, so but usually by the time I've got that done, the stain that's already on the box is at least dry enough that I go ahead and flip the box over and stain the back of it. And again, that's optional. Any staining or whatever is completely optional. Um, but I go ahead and I let that dry. Once the stain is dry, then I move to another optional piece and I take some 600 grit and 1500 grit sandpaper, sand it down nice and smooth. Um, from there, I go ahead and put a coat of polycrylic on it, right? So now it's got a little protecting, a little protective clear coat, and I let that dry. And again, this is optional. But then once the clear coat is dry, then another optional piece, I go ahead and sand that down with 600 and 1500 grit. Make sure everything's even, everything's nice and smooth. I like it silky smooth, right? Um, less chance of splinters and all that stuff. Okay, so once that's all done, and of course, anytime you sand, make sure you take a cloth and wipe the dust off or whatnot. Um, but once that clear coat is dry, now is an optimal time if you're going to put corners on it. And again, that part's optional. Go ahead and pop those corner pieces on there. Um, you could wait until after you install the neck or whatever. You could even make it the last thing you do. But now's a good time because you've got the box and you put the corners on. You go ahead and put the strap button on if you're going to put one of those on as well, because now you're not fighting with the neck and trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I gonna, hold this box, or how am I gonna get this drill around this neck or whatnot. So pop the corners on. Once the corners are on, now comes the next mandatory piece, right? Go ahead and attach the neck to the body. Now, with the necks, they come with two washers and two bolts. One of the washers is about the size of a quarter, and the other one is about the size of a nickel. I find that you only need the quarter size washer and then one of those bolts, right? Take a 10 millimeter deep well socket. You can get in there. You go right through the sound hole, get in there. Now you'll have to do a little bit of gymnastics with your fingers to get that nut on there, onto that bolt, right? And get the washer on, then get the nut on, and get it just kind of finger tight. I wouldn't say hand tight because you're not really using your hand so much as your finger. And then you get the socket and you crank it down. Not overly tight, but tight enough where that neck's not going to move. One point of caution here, though, is you want to make sure that the heel is flush against the head of the box and the fretboard is flush against the body of the box, right? You want a good tight connection there. Um, when you initially put it in there, if it's not tight, you want to go ahead and take a rasp kind of like this and go ahead and ream out that hole, so that way that neck will sit a little bit lower on the box and get the fretboard flush. Once it's good and tight, now your next optional piece, you go ahead and put the sound hole cover on. Now, you could glue the sound hole cover on. I don't like to do that. I actually like to take a couple of screws and pop in there just that way in case I ever need to take the neck off for whatever reason, or just get inside the box. I can just go ahead and take the screws out and open the sound hole cover. Um, the little packet that has the strings and the bridge and all that has little screws for the bridge, but there's probably going to be a few extra screws in there. So just take a couple of those screws and you can secure that sound hole cover. All right. Once that's done, you go ahead and pop the saddle onto the bridge and then string it up. Now, for um, for sopranissimos, sopranos, concerts, and tenor ukes, you will tune the instrument to G, C, E, A. The baritone is a little bit different. It has a little bit different set of strings. It's got a couple of wound strings, and you will tune that to where'd it go? You will tune that to D, G, B, E, right? So it's basically like a regular guitar, but the top four strings. And then to finish it off, a little optional piece. Take you some jute twine like this, cut off a little length, and just make a little strap out of it, right? And then bam, we're done. So that's what I've done to complete these instruments. And like I said, it was a lot of fun. Got about $400 into it and a little bit more than 24 hours. But with each of the instruments, let's see, as far as required steps, my my baritone uke required 91 minutes. All right. Oddly enough, um, I would think that my smallest ukes would require the less time, but I think I'd kind of perfected my skills as I went through, so to speak, right? And, maybe combine a step here or there. So my uh, concert uke required the least amount of required minutes at 60 minutes or an hour on the nose. My tenor required a little bit more time. And then my baritone required a little bit more time. The baritone took me a little bit more time getting it strung up and tuned. And then I'm not sure exact. Um, well, so my sopranissimo, the first one, took me 90 minutes. And then my soprano took me 76 minutes. And the tenor took me 78 minutes, right? Now, as far as expensive kits go, the baritone was the most expensive. The sopranissimo and soprano were both the least expensive, right? Um, but anyway, so I'm going to do another video here before too long. And I'll take each of these instruments, right, give you a little sound demo and talk about some of the things or just different aspects, because even though the steps are pretty much all the same, there's some differences, right? And they're different instruments. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. Um, Please don't forget to give me a like, leave me a comment, hit that subscribe button, and we'll be seeing you on the flip side.